Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay in the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Welcome to the Black Gold Banneret Podcast, special edition today. Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez with you here. So sports are firing back up. You know, we've seen the NWSL fire back up. We got the basketball tournament, which, well, we were supposed to have more UCF guys in it than we did, which was kind of a bummer. But back here in Orlando, two sports are getting ready to fire up. Obviously, the NBA trying to finish off its season that was ended in March, and then also MLS trying to kickstart its season with a modified format. And one of the players who is going to be doing so is our special guest today, whom Eric spoke with, Warren Creavalle, former UCF men's soccer player, was at UCF from 2010 to 2011 after transferring from Furman. In 2010, his first season at UCF, he was All-American third team. He was the first UCF player to earn All-American honors in 13 years. Was All-Conference USA, and really filled up the trophy case. He was on the Mac Herman Trophy Award watch list for his senior season. First team All-Conference USA again for UCF in 2011 as the Knights made the NCAA tournament, and was drafted into MLS by the and actually started with the Carolina Dynamo of the Professional Development League and worked his way up. He's played for Houston, Toronto, and is currently with the Philadelphia Union. And Eric, you spoke to Warren earlier this week as he and the Union were getting ready to make their way down to Orlando and prepare for this unusual season format. But it's good to see Warren back in old familiar grounds, isn't it?
It is, and certainly for Warren Creavalle, he's quite familiar with Central Florida. As you mentioned, spent 2 seasons at UCF, helped them get to the NCAA tournament in 2010 and 2011. It was the first time UCF had been to the tournament since 2004 prior to that. And prior to Philadelphia's arrival to Orlando in the bubble last week, I got a chance to talk to Warren about what it's going to be like to participate in a bubble like they will be at Disney World. As Philadelphia Union, his team will open on July 9th, 9 a.m. against New York City FC and former UCF goalie Sean Johnson. We talked about that, but we talked about his concerns with the bubble. What's it going to be like to play without fans? We also discussed his days, how he got to UCF, and some of the memories of being at UCF. Here now, Warren Creavalle on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
The 25th season of the MLS will return and resume at Disney starting July 8th. The MLS is back, and of course, one of the teams there is the Philadelphia Union. They'll take on New York City FC at 9 a.m. on July 9th. The game will be televised on ESPN, and our guest now here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast will be a part of that. Warren Creavalle joins us, of course, UCF All-American back in 2010, and of course, part of 2-time USA first-team All-Member, and of course, part of 2 UCF NCAA tournament teams now, and once again with the Union. Warren, how you doing?
Doing well, man. Thanks for having me on.
So tell us a little bit, what has it been like for you here over the last few months? Obviously, with the interruption due to the virus, how have you been able to stay sharp and prepare with these unique circumstances here as you get ready to resume here on July 9th?
Mentally it's been a bit tough, trying to stay in shape, on your own. You got to have a lot of, self-discipline. The team was really good about sending out workouts and, stuff to keep us, mentally engaged, physically engaged. But it's on you to have the discipline to push through and complete everything correctly,
What was your reaction when you found out the season would resume with this tournament taking place at Disney, an area you're quite familiar with?
I think, rightfully so, a lot of people were skeptical. There's, at the time, there was a lot of information that was, up in the air. Obviously everything is evolving daily. So I think the player pool in general was just kind of skeptical to the idea until we, got more information.
Did you feel more comfortable with the bubble kind of aspect of it and the protocols? Obviously, the NBA's coming as well, right behind you there a little bit. But I would assume as players, as you got more information, you got to feel a little better about things to restart at Disney there, where it's very much in its own little area.
In theory, it should be a relatively safe space, safer than probably a lot of the markets that teams are coming from. With that, though, obviously Central Florida, and Florida in general is becoming kind of an epicenter for the virus. There's definitely, some positives and negatives with it. But I think, we're all doing the best we can to, keep everybody safe, follow all the protocols, and just kind of go from there.
No question. Of course, one of the things there will be no fans. Have you ever played without fans, and how much of an impact is that going to do on you all players there that you're used to having your crowds? And obviously soccer is such an emotional game with the fan bases. How much of an adjustment will that be? It's going to be a little unique, I would imagine, when that happens.
Yeah, I think unique is a very good word. I mean, obviously, we play in front of no fans or limited fans, in preseason, playing against other teams, but the atmosphere is significantly different. The intensity is significantly different than that of a regular, game in front of fans. You have them energizing the stadium, amplifying the atmosphere. I think it's going to be kind of day and night. And if you've, watched overseas, it's definitely a different feel. You can hear everybody on the field, everything that they're saying, so it's definitely a unique situation.
Let's talk about your team. You've been with Philadelphia since 2015 when you were traded from Toronto on August 7th. What was the kind of your time in Philadelphia? What was kind of your thoughts on this year's team before the season got interrupted? I know it just literally started maybe a game or two in, but what can people expect to see from your team there? What was the kind of your expectations internally going in?
I think, yearly we're kind of, viewed as an underdog or, maybe a sleeper. I think in all honesty, we had a kind of a strong start to the year. Results-wise, it may not have looked that way. But I think the team was in actually pretty good form, went to Dallas and dropped points there, but, went to, probably what the league's best team is, away at LAFC and got a draw on the road. And, I think, that was probably indicating of the form that we were in. So, I think people will, as it gets rolling, start to see what teams are really about. And I'm not here to make predictions about how good or, that we're going to be. But, the truth will reveal itself within the tournament. So.
No question. What do you think of the tournament concept there? Obviously, the group matches will count towards the regular season, but yeah, it's a tournament. It's kind of like the World Cup feel to it. Trying to win a championship as a team. What's that like now to be a part of a tournament here, where it's going to serve multiple purposes? It'll count towards the regular season, but at the same time, you're trying to win a championship, and also trying to kind of get back in in rhythm here as far as playing.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, at least as a player, I don't think there's a more, fun situation than playing in a tournament, The stakes are higher. You have less of a, threshold or less of a margin of error, I should say. And every game counts. It's kind of like like you said, a World Cup setup where, you're fighting to get out of your group. And then from there, it's, anything goes, all bets are off.
Tell me about the MLS. You were a second-round pick, 37th pick overall in the 2012 MLS Super Draft by the Houston Dynamo, where you started. How has the league changed from your time you stepped into the league to now the present?
Man, I think the league has significantly transformed. I think the quality of player, has gone up. The quality of play in general has gone up. When I was drafted to that 2012 Houston team, we were a really good team in the league. And to this day, probably the least technically gifted team that I was on, maybe. I think we had a really good team, but I think just the quality of the overall league has gone up.
Of course, you're going to be opening up against New York City FC, another UCF alum, Sean Johnson, goalkeeper there. Do you all stay in touch? I was curious there as far as the UCF alums in the MLS. You've had success there. Some guys have popped in, but you're one of the vets. You and Sean are like the vets as far as the UCF alums.
Yeah. No, I mean, definitely, Sean and I will talk here and there, especially, when our teams are facing off like we're about to. And, we'll definitely be catching up when we get down to the bubble and have been in communication prior to the tournament. So I'm always, happy for Sean, to see him do well. I think he's had a fantastic career, especially as a UCF alum.
Tell us a little bit of how you ended up at UCF, because you made an immediate impact on the program, and with Coach Cunningham there, you helped him get to the NCAA tournament in 2010, 2011. There was a long drought prior to that. Just tell us the story how you ended up at UCF.
And it's kind of a funny and crazy story, and I don't know that I've spoken on it publicly, but I'll tell you about it. So I spent my first 2 years at Furman University in South Carolina. And just to put it plainly, the experience there, on and off the field just wasn't really what I was looking for. And, I did a lot of complaining there. And, in the back of my mind, I was always open to something else. So one weekend in the spring semester where, you're not really playing games, a few of my teammates actually drove down to Tampa. Took a little road trip from South Carolina to Tampa to go to Gasparilla, and just to have some fun. And it happened to be one of my good friends, one of my best friends. He was actually my wedding. It was his birthday, and he was already at UCF, Kevon George.
Yep.
And so we drove over. The timing just worked out. We just wanted to go celebrate with him, so we drove on over from Tampa to Orlando. And I was like, man, this is what college is supposed to look like. I got to the UCF and I was like, man, this place is like a resort. So I just started asking Kevon, questions like, what's the team like? What's the setup? And, he was just like, I think we have a good thing going. We're just missing, one piece for real. And, that kind of made my ears perk up a bit. And I was like, so I had a good friend there. And I ended up, deciding to, get my transfer request from Furman and went on some visits. And ultimately, UCF was my first visit and, the best experience that I had. So it was just a no-brainer for me.
And you made an immediate impact. You were the third-team All-American in 2010, the first UCF player to be named an All-American since 1997, when Heike Rekkinen was an All-American. Why did you fit in so easily there? It seemed like you were one of the missing pieces there and got him over the hump, made the tournament. But you kind of, sometimes players have a tough time adjusting going from one school to another, but you seem to adjust quickly.
Yeah, and I think I was really comfortable going in for a couple of reasons. Like I said, my relationship with Kevon George, we played with and against each other for, half of our youth soccer, playing on the state team, the region team together. So we had a really good understanding and level of, play. So he was my midfield partner, and so I felt right at home as soon as I got in there. And I had a couple other teammates that were from Atlanta that I knew, Jeroen Bakker, Cameron Cossey, and, the group was just super inviting. I still, have some friends from that group. And, everything, the chemistry just was there instantly. So I felt right at home.
You won that first round NCAA tournament match against South Florida. That's one of the memories I'll never forget there, winning that at home against USF. Then you had to go to Ann Arbor against the talented Michigan team. You got to the second round both years, 2010 and 2011. What do you remember from your UCF days? What games or moments you remember the most from your days at UCF?
Yeah, some of those games, like the USF game, those one of our rivals. So obviously there was a lot of emotion in games like that. I believe it was a Conference USA game against Kentucky. I had a best friend that was playing there, and I scored an overtime winner in that game. So those were like kind of a special moment for me. Obviously the playoff game in Michigan, even though we lost, I think that was a really special atmosphere. They had a really big fan base tailgating before the games in the freezing cold. So it was just a really cool atmosphere to get there and, see, what college soccer looks like in different places. It was just a really cool experience.
What was it like playing for Coach Cunningham? Because, man, he produced brought a lot of players in that ended up playing professionally, whether it be in the MLS, USL, et cetera. And you were part of that, group there. But what was it about playing for Coach Cunningham? Because he drew a lot of guys, really talented guys. You mentioned George. You mentioned yourself, obviously, among others. What was it like?
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that I really liked about playing under him is he gave us a lot of trust, especially the players in leadership positions. He put a lot of faith in us and allowed us to kind of play our game. And obviously he guided us, guided the team, in the way we wanted to play. But I was able to, honestly be the type of player that I wanted to be system. And it worked really well for myself and the team.
Yeah, I mean, and again, that 2010, that was the first time the program had ever hosted a home NCAA tournament match. So you kind of paved the way in a lot of ways for the current Knights. I don't know if you still follow the program, but obviously they got over the hump and got to that Sweet 16 this past year with Cal Jennings, and they beat Missouri State, got to the Sweet 16 for the first time in program history. Have you been able to follow them from a distance there and really, I think, kind of continue that forward trek for the program that you all had there in 2010, 2011?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a group of us that, are in the group chat, keeping tabs on the current team, and how well they're doing. And I'm actually friends with Cal as well. He's from Atlanta. So we train in the off seasons a lot, throughout his whole time at UCF, actually. So it's been really cool to watch him grow as a player. And he's a fantastic human as well. I got to know Richie as well. They're like brothers, so it was really cool to get to meet him as well. And I just think, just as people, even more so than athletics, and that was a really cool relationship to form.
Any advice you giving Cal as far as his journey professionally and any other future Knights for that matter that might follow in y'all footsteps?
Yeah, I mean, speaking to Cal, I got to talk to him down in preseason when we played FC Dallas. I just told him to keep going, just find his rhythm, find his game, because I truly think that there's not really many players like him in our league. I think he kind of fits that Will Bruin type mold, in my opinion. And there's not a whole lot of those. And I think Will's had a fantastic career that he can model after. And just to, keep his faith. This has been a really weird year, and we don't know, where things will go. So, I'm sure that's been difficult for him, but, I do believe he has the tools.
It has to be strange for all of you. I mean, you just saw the English Premier League resumed, and with Liverpool winning their deal there, the NWSL just resumed in Utah, and here you are, you're getting ready to play. It's got to be one of the most unique circumstances you're used to be playing right now. This is like the meat of your schedule, and now you're just kind of like you're seeing other leagues resuming, and as you wait your turn.
Right. I mean, just all around, I think it's been a really interesting, to say the least, set of circumstances centered around, the backdrop of the pandemic and obviously injustices against, Black people in this country and globally. I think it's just been a really unique set of circumstances, I'll say, that affect all of this. So it's definitely not the normal mind frame that we're used to being in at this point of the year, but it is what it is.
You mentioned, obviously, with Black Lives Matter and the movement there. You've been around soccer. Has there been talk about that? Is that something that could, what's been going through your mind as you've seen all of that, and as you get ready to play here and resume, in a lot of ways, maybe have a platform as well in your own way by playing? Athletes have that platform where they can play that maybe other people don't get that opportunity to have a platform and speak out on those issues and among others.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, we definitely do have a platform. If you've seen the Premier League with Black Lives Matters on the back of their jerseys, and the recently resumed Women's League here with their kneeling before the games and their Black Lives Matter shirts. You've seen athletes take advantage of these platforms and really stand up for what's right. And I know the league and the clubs are working to do the same.
Oh, that's great. So they're working on something there. You all on the same page. Is that something you have found that the league and the players here, since the agreement to come back, you all been kind of on the same page here as far as the matters like that that you feel comfortable with and moving forward to kind of help? Because in a lot of ways, a lot of people are kind of looking forward to you all returning for many different reasons, just from a standpoint of a distraction, just from a standpoint of a positive thing for this country.
Right. And there's, as far as being on the same page, there's been a recently formed, Black Players Coalition within MLS, where, there's been communication with the league, for matters such as that. And, there's been an open line of communication between the two. That's been really good. And been able to definitely, have a say in whatever, the league puts out as far as the stance on Black lives. So, I think it's been great.
Couple last things. We've been doing a rankings, top 100 male UCF athletes of all time here on the Black and Gold Banneret. You're ranked 42nd. You cool with that? Man, I mean, here's your chance. Sell your pitch here, man. What's your thoughts there if ranked 42nd all time? And I can tell you there's a lot of great athletes, as you know, at UCF. I'm sure you got friends, a lot of them in various sports. So your thoughts there, ranked 42nd.
And over history, I can't be too upset with that. I couldn't tell you, 40 UCF athletes, I know. So I'm not super well versed on all the great athletes that have come out of UCF. I know during my time there was, a good amount of them. So, to be in the top 50 even, I'm not mad at that.
You're one of 7 guys that have been an All-American on the men's soccer program. And I think that's something I try to highlight, not only in the article, but mention that often, because that's not easy to accomplish. Do you remember when you found out you were an All-American? Because that was the first time it happened with the program in 13 years at the time.
I do. I was kind of caught off guard. I was I was in the mind frame of, things like that don't really happen for me. So I was super pumped, man. I was really excited when that happened, or when I found out, and it's still, an achievement to this day that I hold up there.
All right, last thing is you get ready for the tournament. What's going to be the key to be successful while you're down here at Disney? Once you get through into the bubble and then get ready to play, you're going to open with New York City FC. But what's going to be the keys here to be successful?
I think teams that can adapt the best to the circumstances will be the most successful. Obviously, we're playing at really unusual times, 9 a.m, 10:30 at night. It's going to be hot. We're isolated, from friends and family. So I think that the teams that are able to best deal with the circumstances are going to be the most successful, and the ones that are, the most unified.
That's Warren Creavalle. Of course, you can follow the Philadelphia Union for more information. Go to PhiladelphiaUnion.com. And, of course, you go to MLSsoccer.com for all the details. The MLS starting July 8th, returning at Disney. And, of course, Philadelphia will take on New York City FC on July 9th. 9 a.m. on ESPN, where many UCF fans will be getting up early to bragging rights potentially there, Warren. Hey, congrats so far in your career to this point. Good luck at Disney, man. Be safe there, and appreciate you doing this. And, you got a lot of fans here in Central Florida and Unite Nation that'll be watching you and been following you.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. Make sure you guys are rooting for me and not Sean.
Well, I'll try my best to pass that along, buddy.
All right, appreciate it, my man.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
And that's Warren Creavalle joining us here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Thanks to the Philadelphia Union and their media relations, by the way, for setting that up. And I'm looking forward to it. July 9th, 9 a.m., Philadelphia, New York City FC, the MLS hopefully gets going there on the deal. But let's talk about Warren, Jeff. I mean, you mentioned his accolades. All-American in 2010, the first in 13 years since the great Heike Regveden was the All-American in 97. He's in the UCF Athletic Hall of Fame. And Warren, you look at his career, he got drafted by, of course, the Houston Dynamo. We talked about that and his journey in the MLS. Played with Toronto FC, currently on the Union. He's a veteran in the MLS now. Him and Sean Johnson really have been the two guys in the MLS that have been consistently playing in the league for a while. You've had other guys like Romario Williams and others that, Haji Berry, who have had some cup of coffee, some back and forth stuff, and have played a few years. But as far as veterans, it's Warren Creavalle and Sean Johnson, and very fittingly scheduled to play on July 9th here at Disney World.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, that you see from that is, and what speaks to the quality of Warren as a player, is that, he has international experience, too. Not with Team USA, although he came up through the USA Under-20 system, but he plays for his native Guyana, and has made a few 4 career caps for the Guyanese national team going back to 2016. Along with Sean, who's been back and forth with Team USA, has a couple of international wins to his credit, but. And he, by the way, he's been in the Team USA system since the very beginning. But it's interesting, let's take a look back at UCF Knights men's soccer there for, after they joined Conference USA. In their time in Conference USA, the Knights had only 2 seasons where they were more than one game above 500, and it was both of Warren's seasons. They were 12-5-3 in 2010, 12-6-3 in 2011. And made the NCAA second round both of those years under Coach Brian Cunningham. So that tells you a lot about what he brought to the table for UCF, and he's always been kind of one of those unsung guys too, which as defensive midfielders are. They don't fill the stat sheet with goals, like Cal Jennings did. You don't see them constantly as keepers, but he plays such a key role. And that has translated into longevity at the professional level as he's now with his 3rd MLS franchise, and that means that teams need his services. I think it's an underrated, he plays an underrated position, and he plays it extraordinarily well, and that's translated to a nice career for him.
An argument can be made that Warren Creavalle is the greatest midfielder in UCF men's soccer history when you add to the fact, and I did mention in the interview where I ranked him 42nd in the top 100 UCF Knights male
he called us out on Twitter on that, by the way.
Well, I think you listen to the interview, he's kind of like, all right. I mean, and I get it. Look, if you're an athlete, you're always thinking you're better than you're ranked, right? Like, you're always better, Which I appreciate the competitiveness. I mean, that's competitor, right? So I don't expect him to be like, yeah, I'm 42, woo. I mean,
But both of us if we were in his shoes, probably would have been. But then again, that's why we're not in MLS.
Right. But I mean, I did bring up, he is the highest ranked midfielder that I have, and really, when you look at it, his college career, he showed up from Furman. He talked about the story how he ended up at UCF, friends with Kevon George. Yep. That was a big stepping point. I know you weren't there in 2010, but you were right there at the cut of that roster. Right as soon as they added Creavalle, that helped them put him over the hump and make that 2-year run for Coach Cunningham in the NCAA tournament. That was kind of at the apex there, where Coach Cunningham developed a lot of guys that ended up playing in the MLS. Romario Williams, who played 5 seasons with Columbus, for example, is the highest draft pick, by the way.
Kevon George himself was another one. Had a cup of coffee at MLS too. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, Haji Berry's been a big factor in the USL aspect of things, and as well with Orlando City. Deshaun Brown, who's played with the USL as well, has had some times at the MLS. Kevon George, as you mentioned, those are just some of the guys there that we talked about, and all developed right around that 20 during that Cunningham era. And I think even some people wonder, man, I'm surprised they didn't win more with some of the talent that Cunningham brought in. Of course, Sean Johnson played 2 years in 07 and 08. But, I mean, Warren's had a great career. When you look at the body of work, All-American in the college level, was an immediate impact to that team, helped them get to 2 NCAA tournaments, was a 2-time first-team USA performer in a midfield position, which doesn't get the glory of a forward, for example. Great pro career to this point. Again, him and Sean Johnson, the longest tenured guys in the MLS that are UCF alums. Really, outside of Winston DuBose, the legendary Hall of Famer who's in the Florida Sports Hall of Fame, you can make the case that Creavalle and Sean Johnson have had the 2 best pro careers, soccer careers, of any UCF men's soccer alum.
Yeah, and that also speaks to the fact that because I got that that question too, like, why haven't we seen with all these players who've developed into good professional players, where was the success at UCF? The reason why was because they were still developing at that time. It's still the case in the United States where college soccer is not where you go if you're one of the top players. I mean, look at a guy like Christian Pulisic, right? Like, he didn't play college soccer. So, or Freddie Adu and some of those other guys, they just went right to the pros and played in the developmental professional leagues, sometimes overseas, sometimes here in the United States, before making their way up. Well, college soccer is very similar, at least right now, to college baseball, where it's where you go if you still need to have more development, but the pros don't necessarily think you're that good enough to do. And that, I think, is a real credit to what Brian Cunningham was able to do, is he was able to find talent. And that, as we've seen in all the other sports, has its own cachet too, that, hey, look at the guys who we've brought through our system that have gone on to bigger and better things. You can do that here. And I think that Brian did a good job of that when he was here. And then when he passed the torch on, obviously, to Scott Calabrese, and Scott Calabrese has stepped it up yet another level, where we are seeing not only the success of the individual, but the success of the team corresponding to that too. And because you and I know, Eric, like, there was a time after the success with the program in the A-Sun that a lot of people kind of forgot about UCF men's soccer for a while, which was and sometimes you would always hear about, like, oh, well, if UCF ever dropped a sport, it would probably be men's soccer. And I was like, no, men's soccer is actually a very good program and has been for a very long time. They're just in a very competitive league and have been for a while with Conference USA, going back to Conference USA, because look at how good SMU is. They're year in and year out, an amazing program. And now they follow them into the American. But, over the last several years, UCF has developed, I think, has carved out a nice little piece of territory for itself in the college soccer landscape. And I think that if, as we've spoken with Scott Calabrese about many times before, Eric, if soccer changes over to a year-round sport where you play one game a week, non-conference in the fall and then conference play in the spring, which has been talked about and prior to COVID-19 was one of those things that was on the docket for the coaches and the athletic administrators to potentially vote on. That could be a real boost to college soccer and in turn a real boost to UCF because they've already laid the groundwork for that kind of success, right?
No question about that. And the program at this peak, we'll see. I mean, I agree. I think being a 2-semester sport, I think, yes, it would help the development of players because it is. It's kind of like a sprint. The way they do it, it's very different than they do in other leagues across not only in the States but in the world. So we'll see. Of course, it was cool. We talked about, of course, you talk about Coach Calabrese and the success. Of course, we think about Cal Jennings, who was a first-round pick at this year's Super Draft. And how cool is it? My favorite part of the interview there, Warren talked about how he's been training with Cal. Because Cal's a Georgia guy, and Warren, and so they've been training in Georgia. They've known each other for a while, and that's always great. And I talked in the interview to hear the alums helping each other out. Pretty cool, Jeff, and kind of the advice that he's going to give Cal as far as he moves along in his pro career. Obviously, with FC Dallas, first-round draft pick, who knows how soon they might need him with all the things that's going on at FC Dallas with the COVID cases there. But awesome. Cal is very in good hands as far as who better than a guy like Warren to give him advice as far as what to expect in the pro level and beyond. But I thought that was pretty cool. Here's two guys that played for different coaches but went to the same school there. They never played together, but they knew each other, and he's willing to help him out. I think it's awesome, and it speaks a lot about that UCF pride. And I think Coach Calabrese has to be pleased to hear that and to help that the alums still help out the UCF program all these years later.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is it's not just that; it's also the fact that these guys get it that at the pro level, it really still is about developing and getting better and carving out a career for yourself. At that level, it's. We like to think of guys as being, highly competitive, and I'm not taking away from that. These guys are highly competitive. Listen to what Warren was saying about his ranking, right? You don't get to that level without being competitive. But at the same time, this is still a developing sport, and UCF is still a developing program. And to see these guys, working together, I think is extremely positive for the growth of the sport, because one of the things we've always talked about over the years, MLS in general has always been let's face it, it's been considered a second tier league at best, internationally speaking. But America has soccer talent that they're trying to find and develop here. I think that if the change in the soccer calendar happens, I think that'll be a boost for American soccer. The continued success of MLS, going into markets that they have not, that don't have a lot of pro sports. For example, Sacramento's getting a team. Austin's getting an expansion team. Obviously, Orlando only had one pro team prior to Orlando City happening. So, I really do think that we hear all the time about, is soccer really going to catch on in the United States? Well, it's not going to happen overnight, but it's a process. And I think that if it happens, it's got to be. It's not quite there, but it's right on the cusp.
Well, and it's stable, right? I mean, the MLS in its 25th season here is stable. Remember the NASL? I'm sure you remember that's growing up.
Is that the New York Cosmos and all that?
Right. It just never was stable, right? They try to get these big names, and it financially just didn't work. Unfortunately, Winston DuBose, who's in the UCF Hall of Fame, was play for the Tampa Rowdies. About that, they just were never stable enough. Plus, U.S. soccer at that time was, a non-factor. They hadn't been to the World Cup until 1990. I think the sport of soccer is much more stable and popular now than it was, say, 20 years ago. When you think about people in the States are watching MLS soccer, but they're also watching English Premier League soccer. That's what I've been watching the last few weeks, and it gets good numbers for NBC. And NBC Sports Network. So people are watching that. They're watching international soccer, the U.S. men's soccer, the U.S. women's soccer. So people are into the soccer, and I think the MLS has been a league now that has proven that, hey, we're here to stay 25 years. And think of the attendance. I mean, a place you used to work at in Georgia, at Atlanta FC, who would have thought they would be on fire as far as fan interest and excitement there? They packed house that Mercedes-Benz Stadium there when they won the MLS Cup a couple years ago. Orlando City has always drawn well. Now, the last couple years, the product on the field has not been good in Orlando City, and I think it's affected their attendance. But the passion is there if they can win. We've seen it in Portland, Seattle. So the MLS markets are hitting, like you said, and they've got to. I think, to me, if you did a stock up and stock down for pro sports, I think soccer is on the ups. The big thing for the MLS is, like you said, maybe getting that development player so the U.S. men's soccer can have more success and be in the World Cup, and not only be in the World Cup but have success down the road. And hopefully UCF can contribute to that. Sean Johnson has kind of been back and forth with the U.S. national team and things like that. Winston DeBose was an original goalkeeper on the U.S. national team. Maybe we'll see some more UCF guys down the road. And I think if you're Scott Calabrese, who I think, and I think you agree with me, is a genius.
Yeah.
And tell me if I'm wrong here. I think he's one of the few coaches I've ever seen. If you told me Scott Calabrese, I think he could coach men's college soccer. I think he could coach the pro level. He could coach the international level. Hopefully he stays here. But my point is, I think he's a genius, and I think he's going to bring players excitement. If you're a player, why wouldn't you come to UCF right now, where you can be? It's a school that is proven to produce players to play at the next level, and you're playing an exciting style of soccer too, which I think has helped with Scott there in his offense, which has been a perennial top 10 offense since he's arrived here.
That's the thing. That's one of the biggest drawbacks of soccer here in the United States is that, well, it's not exciting enough. And I've said this before on Twitter, and a number of other, and I think a number of people have echoed this, like the style of play that UCF plays is one where if more people saw it, they would be like, this is amazing, because it is Josh Heupel on a soccer pitch is what it is. It's constantly pushing the action, and getting his. I told Scott one time when we saw him, right, like, your players never met a shot they didn't like, and UCF the last 2 years underneath him has been among the top teams in the country in shot attempts and scoring, shots on goal, and it's a credit to the style of play that they engage in. And I would love to see whatever gospel Scott Calabrese is preaching, that it gets that it picks up on the wind, and we find it in other places too, especially on Team USA, because that would be a lot of fun to see. I know that there's a lot of there's a lot of flux right now with the United States men's national team, but I'm here to tell you, soccer heads, if Scott Calabrese ever gets a look at any level above UCF, or hopefully he would maybe he gets a look at Team USA while he's also at UCF, which I think would be fantastic. It could be a real revolution for soccer in the United States to play that kind of style, because it's so fun to watch. And hopefully, we'll get to see more of that this fall, and at the very least, we'll be able to see, hopefully, if all goes well. Oh, go ahead.
And a credit to Tiffany Roberts-Hadak, who played for Calabrese in the pro levels, and was one of the people that was pushing for him for the UCF job when it was open, and endorsed him, which is a tremendous credit to her, to show, hey, I want both programs to be successful. This is not about, hey, we're the featured franchise program here, or things like that. And I think what the last 3 years have proven is that women's soccer and men's soccer complement each other here at soccer. I mean, I was with Murph at the American Conference Championship game this past year in bad cold weather, 30, 40 degrees. They had over 1,000 people there. It was a big crowd for that soccer championship, and a great environment. I know you've been out there the year before that. So people are excited about the program. They're excited. There's the interest there. And it's guys like Warren Creavalle giving back, and what they started 10 years ago, really helping get the program back there and being showcased in the MLS like he will be here at this MLS Is Back tournament at Disney here, which will be huge. I think it's going to draw very good numbers. Now, the good news for you, Jeff, this might work on your schedule. The matchup of July 9th scheduled 9 a.m. 9 a.m. So
sign me up. I'm in.
It's like the old World Cup day there. But
I know. I love it. I can make breakfast for my kids. We put the soccer on. It's fantastic.
I'll have to obviously have an alarm clock for it, but it's going to be fun, especially if Sean Johnson at goal, Creavalle, hopefully, that'll be fun. And by them having good careers moving forward, and hopefully Cal Jennings follows suit, maybe Romario Williams can get back into the MLS. He has played 5 seasons at Columbus. He's currently on the Miami USL team. Maybe he gets a call back with the Miami, MLS team maybe at some point. But those guys having success, and Cal Jennings, that only helps the UCF brand as far as soccer is concerned, just like it's gotten help, obviously, on the women's side with all the success they've had nationally and to some extent professionally, although the women's game is still not as stable professionally in the States like the men is right now.
Yeah, but it's approaching that, and I think that if they're able to prove to themselves that they can complete this season, and we see them on CBS Sports Network now, and if they can do so, and if MLS can do so, I think that's a big boost, because a lot of sports are in trouble right now, as we know, Eric, and to prove and if they can get through this and prove their stability, like you said, that's going to be a big win. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing MLS kick off. Hopefully, they do so with as many players and staff and coaches as healthy as humanly possible, and we'll see what happens from there. So it should be fun. All right, Warren Creavalle, thanks again to Warren for taking some time out of what is a busy time for him right now, and best of luck to him and all the other UCF alumni and who will and hopefully may play in the bubble at MLS. And we wanted to by the way, his Twitter, Warren Creavalle, is Warren Speak, WarrenSpeak, no spaces, no underscores on Twitter. So make sure you follow him there. All right, Eric. Hey, thanks for pulling this off, man. We appreciate it. You're going to be what else you got coming down the pike?
Well, we're going to be obviously in the process of wrapping up the top 100 UCF male athletes, top 80 female athletes. I know we'll dissect that down the road as well. Part of our UCF 250 series. That's going to be exciting as we kind of put a bow on that, as we'll find out what other soccer players are ranked in those polls as well as other athletes is concerned. That's going to be kind of coming up soon on the Black and Gold Banneret. And obviously I'll be following the MLS, seeing how Warren and Sean do, and hope everything goes well there, and then go from there. And maybe after that, they might be set the example and set the tone for the NBA in a few weeks after that, when they're going to be at Orlando at Disney for the bubble. So hopefully it works itself out from that standpoint. But that's the main thing, top 100 and top 80 for now on the female athletes. And maybe you mentioned that UCF men's soccer this year, some classic top games from this year. That also will be out down the road as well as their top games of the year.
That should be fun, too. And, of course, we're going to be looking also at – I wanted to pass along, last but not least, a special welcome aboard to Daniela Medina, who's our latest and newest staff member here at Black and Gold Banneret. Put up a couple stories last week. Just an amazing writer, a fantastic journalist, and a fun follow on Twitter. So make sure you follow her at Danny Medina News. That's Danny Medina News as well. And I'm thankful that she's going to be providing – her talent to us. She's a phenomenal writer. So welcome aboard, Danny. Congratulations. So that'll do it for us here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Don't forget, we'll be back later this week, Thursday, with our latest show. Eric and myself and Brian Murphy talking about all the latest news and what is hopefully some good news as we roll through the month of July here with COVID-19 still bearing down on a lot of sports, but hopefully things work out for the best here. So in the meantime, wear your masks, people.
Yeah. By the way, we'll ask Murph on the next episode. A fourth UCF player now on the Major League Baseball roster, Danny Winkler with the Chicago Cubs roster there, part of the 60-man roster, joining, as we talked about in the last episode, with Bo Taylor, and then obviously Drew Butera in Colorado, Bo Taylor with Cleveland, and of course Dylan Moore with Seattle. So 4 UCF guys now, at least on 60-man rosters in the Major League Baseball roster. So we'll ask Murph about Winkler there. And, of course, we encourage you to check out our archive, some great interviews. Ben Lively, who me and Murph talked to a couple weeks ago, is about a week away to returning in the KBO. So
good news.
Which is wild. Isn't this crazy, Jeffrey? With all, even though there's not a lot of sports going on, UCF's still a factor all over the world.
We're everywhere. This university is everywhere, people. You can't escape us. You can try all you want. It's just not going to happen. So that's good. By the way, great news on Dan Winkler. So happy that he's getting a shot now. But a draftee back in 2011 and getting his shot now. He's had a couple shots with the Braves here and there from 2015. He was 3-1 last year at the age of 29, 4.98 ERA. But you know what? Getting another shot right now with the Cubs, that's good. That's always good news.
Absolutely. He had a good run with the Braves there for a while. Late innings, a bullpen guy. So I'm kind of curious to talk to Murph about Winkler and his kind of standpoint in Chicago and his career as well in our next episode.
All right. So once again, hey, thanks to you, Eric, for pulling off the interview with Warren. Thanks to Warren for taking the time for us. Best of luck. Stay healthy. And thanks to you for listening. For Eric Lopez, I'm Jeff Sharon. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. All the best. Stay healthy. We'll talk to you later this week.